lot of the New York Times articles. Thank you, everyone. Let's turn our mics on. Welcome. Roll call.
Commissioner Allen is absent. Commissioner Atwater is absent. Commissioner Christopherson.
He's here.
Commissioner Griffin.
Here.
Commissioner Trezza.
Here.
Vice Chairman Duffy.
Present.
Chairman Barquette.
Here.
You do have 5 commissioners present. It does constitute a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Are there any questions of the board, or anybody want to remove any of the items?
I just had one question.
Sure.
On C,
See,
where it
yes.
says construction support of rail line, including project management in coordination with third parties, would that be like the railroad itself, or what are the third parties? Third parties.
Where are you? I don't
On the
see
memo?
that.
C. It's just a question I had on C where you guys did the explanation, Site 10 development.
Oh, it's the backup.
Is it in the memo?
Yes, as part of the memo, second page, Site 10 redevelopment. Construction support for rail line, including project management in coordination with third parties. Yeah?
Yeah, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I was just curious on that one.
Yeah, so the Site 10 is out at the Denmark facility on that property, and so it's coordinating with UP, both our other, with Denmark. They need to, so the way we need to go in and compact those landfills
That's what I was wondering about.
is to support the rail that's going to go on top, and so there's some coordination that needs to happen there. You know, we have to provide material that's to spec to make sure that we can get proper compaction so that the rail line can be built on top.
Right, your own crack and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, and just to follow up on that, we had a discussion, and also I asked maybe in the future, because that's kind of an open-ended contract under C, you know, that maybe it could be a little bit more detailed and site-specific, so we could get kind of estimates of how much each particular project may be costing. So that was one comment I had as well. But without anything else, is there anyone,
Make a motion to.
I was going to ask if there's anybody from the public that would like to provide comments on the consent agenda. Okay, seeing none, I'm open for a,
Make a motion to accept.
have a motion? Motion and a second?
What's the second?
Yes. Yeah,
Greer, thank you.
halves.
2 halves.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay. Next one is annual review and possible approval of the amendments to the Stockton Port District Policy Statement. We did have an ad hoc committee, which was chaired by Mr. Allen. So did he leave some comments?
Yes, he did.
Allen? He did, okay.
The ad hoc committee included Commissioners Atwater, Trezza, and Allen. We focused on those items that seemed to be of most concern to the commission at our previous meeting. We unanimously agreed that the threshold for long-term leases requiring commission approval should remain at 5 years. We agreed that the director should have purchasing approval pursuant to policy statement 5.2A and B should be $75,000. Our reasoning is that policy statement 3.6E already gives the director authority to execute service contracts up to $75,000. We felt that for simplicity and ease of administration, the amounts should be the same. The other sections that identified in the staff memo were all acceptable. If it's appropriate, that was from Commissioner Allen.
Okay. So it looks like there were 2 issues that
Yeah.
they addressed. One was the 5 years, which they kept the same, and the other, the amount that the port director can spend up to $75,000. If there's anybody who wants to comment on that, or ask Bill, any board members have any comments or questions?
Move to approve the committee recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So those-
And that is a recommendation to approve all of the changes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is all of the other changes that were attached to our,
Yeah.
that's right, including that report. Well, thank you, Bill and Jay and David for serving on that and getting that cleared up, so. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to committee reports. Does anybody, Michael? No? Karen? No?
Got the ad hoc.
We had the ad hoc committee, that's right. And so with that, we'll move on to the port director's comments.
Thank you. So this year, the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement, we received for our fiscal year 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So thank you to Michelle Bowling, Director of Finance and staff for their contribution there. This is the 22nd consecutive year that the port has received that award.
Cool.
That's nice.
We just concluded our Adopt a Family program this year in partnering with the Child Abuse Prevention Council. Altogether, port staff adopted a total of 40 children, and with that contribution equaling about $4,000, and the port has also matched that dollar amount. So it was our biggest year of participation from port staff, and it was a great program. Thank you to Tracy Finucchi for leading that program within port staff. In addition to that, we also, the port also adopted 10 families from Washington Elementary School this year with $100 gift cards. So that was coordinated by Jeff Wingfield. So thanks, Jeff, for coordinating that. That was very well received. And lastly, on the dredging side, operationally, the Army Corps just completed the annual maintenance dredging of the ship channel. We are awaiting survey reports to determine if there's been significant improvement in our controlling depth. So more to come on that. And that concludes the director's reports.
Thank you. If you haven't noticed, we have a interim director. for the meeting. So, thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
No other, yes.
Just a quick,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple quick questions, they may not be for you to answer, but related to the report that we can receive
Okay.
from the director, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. One comment was concerning the housing authority potential sale. I just would suggest, as you mentioned before, that when that's closer to fruition, that we bear in mind the past history of the port's involvement with that area, and make sure that we consider that in deciding how and to whom and under what terms we sell. Because the big issue for years politically was, as Steve will remember, the concerns, let's call them, threats by the city, I think mostly, over residential, over truck traffic in the residential area. And if our sales compound that problem, we should be mindful of that. What do we do about it? I think as commercial use, I don't know if it's, commercial use maybe is less impactful because it's the homeowners that were generating concern, I think. So that's just something to be reminded of because it's history, but it's history that could repeat itself. Someday. Maybe I just didn't understand the issue so well, but there's talk of, the volumes on the revenue side decreasing, but the net's increasing, and I wasn't clear on how that's occurring. Is it, the expenses reduced that much, or do you recall what I mean? It was in the millions.
I'm looking.
I recall looking at the
Oops,
big,
sorry.
big report, there's certain volumes that
Yeah.
have variable expense, that
Yeah.
you see those expenses reduce when the volumes go down on the revenue.
I don't know if that was it or not.
There was some of that in the big report we just got a month ago, the
Yeah.
6 month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There's some degree of variability in some of the expenses.
Yeah, it was a several $1 million difference.
Like,
Decrease in net, but also increase in net, I think.
handling and
Yeah.
things like that.
Commissioner Christopherson, I
Yeah.
do not have a response for you right now, but
Sure.
I will definitely follow up. with
Well,
you via the
I'm just
board.
curious. I think it wasn't well explained. And then I think the last thing, it's a good thing, the LACE form is periodically subject to review, which we've done in the years past with some good changes we implemented. So I think it'd be helpful when the time comes and you've done your complete review to give us some brief synopsis of the substance of changes, not petty ones, but if there's some substantive significant changes, we should probably be aware of those because that affects every transaction. Before, one was acceleration clauses, was right to assign was another thing. Over time had changed. The review of prospective tenants or guarantors has been an issue over the years, a significant one, really. And so that kind of thing, it would just be helpful, just bullet points. These are the main things where,
Do we get to approve that lease form?
I guess the form, no, but each individual lease, yes. And so this jumps ahead of that, and just if we know the form looks good, it's less of an issue when a particular lease is before us. I think that's right, isn't it, Steve? That was and then just as a reminder, and I think it would be more for not you, but your predecessor here, to give us an informational presentation at some point on what's contemplated for the new administrative offices and what's going on with 315 and here. We've not had that yet, and I would think done in closed session might be appropriate too, because there may be a lot of questions that are appropriate there because of the real estate transaction in part. And I think that's, sorry to prolong a meeting, otherwise be 10 minutes.
Take your time, take your time, that's right.
I want to keep the records. So talk slow.
I'm trying to help you here. So that's all I had.
Yes, related to Building 315 and Balls Tract, the
Yeah.
Port Director's intent is to, in January, come back to, in closed session for updates to.
January, mid-January, what date is it?
Probably the mid-January, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. I did have a meeting
Oh,
with
good.
him prior to that.
Oh,
And
good.
he addressed both of those comments, and we're gonna be talking
good,
about it
good.
next
Thank you.
month. So
Thank
your
you.
comments are timely.
Thanks. That's all I had, thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Steve? No? Michael? No? Bill, any commission comments?
Inland Port. The coalition that's driving that is just a coalition of agencies and stuff. They're gathering letters of recommendation from the port, COG, Board of Supervisors, City of Stockton, UOP, maybe somebody in the environmental world. Diane will probably talk to you about that. And this is just to say we like the concept of the inland port because they need it. They need public support to get that $55 million grant so we can start more planning and stuff.
What is the timing on that, on them choosing? Is there any hard deadlines?
They have, there's no authority set up. It's this coalition of COGs, ports, and people like that. We're part of it. And they're trying to get the state, either through CalSTAR or Caltrans, to say, please put out an RFP so we can start viewing prospects.
Right.
So they're talking about maybe doing a joint power agreement.
But there's no timing on, I'd only ask because that
As
has
soon
to
as-
do with any of our discussions on Sharp, right? Or,
No, we've got some time.
okay, that's
Got a
good.
lot of time.
'Cause I thought it was being pushed.
It is, but just can't
Move
get it through
slowly.
Sacramento.
Move slowly.
The people who want it the most try the least.
Okay.
So certain things are moving, which is good, but not everything. It'll get there, I hope.
Thank you for that update.
Sure.
Okay, on my end, I'd just like to also thank the city council. They reappointed me last meeting. So for those of you that are looking forward to getting rid of me, I'm going to be around here for 4 more years. So
You look a lot more relaxed.
thank you. Thank you for that. And with that, I do not have any other comments and move on to public comments. So on behalf of the port, we are taking anybody outside public comments. We welcome those comments, and each speaker will have 3 minutes for comments. Did we receive anything?
You have public comments,
Just that
other
one.
than the one you have.
This one. So we
Yeah.
did receive one by mail, which I will read into the record. Good morning, Melanie. Thanks for continuing to send the agenda for the Port of Stockton regular meetings. How can I find the specific feedstock listed on the daily vessel log Port of Stockton shipments on December 20th and 28th shipped from Singapore? The log simply lists renewable diesel. The heading on the column shows origin and destination. The only thing listed is the origin. What is the destination of this shipment? Also, on the November 21st agenda, the first quarter 22-23 fiscal year financial statement was listed. Where can the public find the financial statement on the website? Lastly, does the port have a policy statement regarding purchases subject to a competitive bid process? Thanks, Jan Warren. So I assume that we'll reach out to her with appropriate answers that we have? Okay. Thank you. With that, we will go into closed session.
In 1845, when Charles Weber acquired a 49,000-acre parcel from his luckless business partner in exchange for paying off his grocery bill, he couldn't have anticipated what awaited him 3 years later.
During the gold rush, Argonauts could come to Stockton en route to what were known as the southern mines. But the principal artery for transportation and the fastest way to travel was via water.
There was no Stockton in those early days. There was Charles Weber's tent town on the San Joaquin River that served as a jumping-off point for the gold fields.
He realized that the San Joaquin River was going to be the principal aid in developing his city, and Charles Weber was able to attract enough business people to establish hotels and restaurants and freight companies, and they would cater to the wants and needs of the miners. Those who did not make their fortune, in many instances, had been farmers in their previous lives. And coming back into Stockton or Sacramento, took a look around the Central Valley and realized there was great agricultural potential.
We're in San Joaquin County. This is the most productive agricultural area really in the world. You grow corn, wheat, almonds, walnuts, fruit, a whole host of different commodities feeding the world. You couldn't have the unique agricultural environment we have without the river. That is what allowed this state to turn from a gold mining state, if you will, to a food state.
California's Central Valley is blessed with the best soil there is. Back then, the problem was less about growing the food than it was getting it to market. Without a statewide railroad system or even decent roads, Stockton was in a strategic position to be a hub, connecting the valley by river to San Francisco.
From gold rush days, riverboats carried passengers and cargo on a daily basis between Stockton, Sacramento, and San Francisco.
With the Central Pacific Railroad's completion of a branch line in 1869, connecting Stockton with the Transcontinental Railroad, the city's vision as a trade and transportation hub began to materialize, except for one critical issue.
There were rather tortuous waterways leading from San Francisco to Stockton, weaving and turning through the islands. And because of hydraulic mining, there was a lot of sedimentation of these river areas, and so it was becoming rather shallow.
In addition, ships were getting larger with deeper drafts, leaving the river's shallow depth a barrier to ocean-going vessels. If the region was going to grow with the times, it had to tame the twisting passage through the delta. Even though no single individual gets credit for proposing a dredged shipping channel, it was Lieutenant Colonel Barton Stone Alexander who drew up the plan in 1870 that showed it was feasible.
they kind of choked at the projected $8 million price tag of such a ship canal. And so it continued to be a festering problem for the city of Stockton, being cut off from that ocean-going transportation.
Other countries hungered for California products, not just grains, nuts, and cotton, but manufactured goods too. The opportunity for trade was undeniable.
When a product moves and how it moves is all dependent on where the destination is. The ship behind me is actually loading rice that's going to Japan. Rice would not be able to get to Japan if it didn't use port facilities, because it doesn't make economic sense to ship the kind of tonnage that one ship can hold in another way, like, say, maybe in an aircraft.
Stockton's residents remained convinced their future lay in a navigable ship channel. So in 1925, they passed a $3 million bond toward its construction. The state and feds later added more funds that finally set the project in motion. Work began in 1930. Dredges began removing millions of cubic yards of river bottom. Clamshell dredges piled the mud and rock to make levees that formed the new channel, opening acres of delta islands for farmland. Despite the Great Depression and Hitler's rise in Germany, in Stockton, church bells rang and automobile horns blared. It was 1933, and more than 1,000 people celebrated the arrival of the Daisy Gray, the first deep draft vessel to arrive at Stockton's new port using the new channel. It was the start of a new era.
The local responsibility was to develop the facilities. So they developed the docks, the warehousing, the rail connection, many of which we're actually still using today. In my opinion, rail facilities are just as important to the success of a port as a dock.
Central California Traction Company has been in business for more than 100 years. We are a small railroad that basically does all the railroad switching on the Port of Stockton, and we're going all day long. We get rail cars from two major railroads, Burlington Northern and Union Pacific, and we get those cars, separate them all out, take them to the customers, let them unload them or load them, and then take them back and give them to those Class 1 railroads. The port is a busy place, and they've got ships coming in, they've got trucks coming in, and if we didn't have the railroad here, you wouldn't be able to get enough trucks in over the road infrastructure that they have.
When the United States mobilized to fight in World War II, Stockton's port facility became an integral part of the war effort. The United States Army took over the Port of Stockton, and it became the largest vehicle and parts consignment center in the entire United States. The harbor overflowed with 10,000 workers, loading merchant vessels and assembling as many as 125 ships for the war effort, from tugs to minesweepers.
In 1944, the United States Navy took over what was known as Rough and Ready Island and turned it into a naval complex. And the Navy held on to this area up until the year 2000, when Rough and Ready Island and all of its developments were turned over to the Port of Stockton.
Rough and Ready Island tripled the size of the port overnight. It added warehousing and open land that the Port of Stockton never had before. The acquisition really helped us to be able to provide additional space for tenants to develop their own projects.
Yara North America chose this location for its central location in the valley. We were able to lease a piece of the land here and build this facility and move our operation from another location that was less profitable and less convenient, so to speak. Keeps us competitive, keeps our costs down, and keeps us profitable, which is really what we're all about.
The presence of global companies reflects the port's role in world commerce. Cargo crossing the docks has grown 176% in less than 10 years, making the Port of Stockton the fourth busiest port in California.
I've seen the port get extremely busy. I was working when there would be maybe one ship every 2-3 weeks. Now we have 2-3 ships every day coming in. It's just booming.
While the port is responsive to world markets and international trade trends, it's also tied to the local community with a responsibility to its neighbors.
Today, the port supports more than 10,000 jobs, what I like to call family wage jobs, to become a major part of the economic foundation of Stockton and the greater San Joaquin County area. The port actually makes a major contribution through tax revenues that go into every facet of every service that's provided by the city of Stockton or San Joaquin County.
The port absolutely is part of the community. The waterway is not just only our ship channel. It is part of the Delta, it is part of the Pacific Flyway, it is a recreation area, it is a fishery. One of the latest commitments the port has made is we have joined the Green Marine program. It looks at how ports and how maritime operations are being handled to reduce your impacts on the environment. At Antioch Dunes National Wildlife Refuge, we are working to restore the habitat for 3 species by placing sand material that comes out of our dredging each year. It's been an extremely successful project. The owls were here when we took over Rough and Ready. You know, the rodents like the burrow holes in our levees, and we use the owls, the Air Force, if you want to call them, to come in and reduce the rodent population. This wonderful group, Puentes, came to us, and they wanted to develop a community garden. And we thought it was a wonderful idea.
We belong to a church in Sacramento, and a lot of the people are elderly and are really in need. So we thought once we start harvesting, we'll go and bless people so that way the people that can't get out, they'll have their fresh veggies delivered right to them. The power of one little seed to help people live more sustainable lives. Yeah, that's our goal.
It could be asked, what's a maritime port got to do with community gardening, or saving endangered species, or running a tiny service railroad, or any of a host of novel undertakings? It's being innovative, it's being responsive, it's being unique. But then, a bustling port 75 miles inland from the coast is unique. That's the Port of Stockton, cast in a different mold from its start as a gold rush depot upriver, doing what's needed to meet the challenges of its times, the responsibilities as a community leader, and embracing the prospects for a bright future.
Back in 2006, we started building and installing barn owl nest boxes to enhance the barn owl population here at the port.
We put cameras in the boxes, put the images up on our website. I think we had 40,000 hits on our website just on the owls in 1 month last year.
The public went absolutely crazy for it. We would post regular updates on the port's Facebook page, and we got many, many, many responses, lots of interested viewers. Absolutely beautiful animals. They've got a big white disc of their face that actually helps channel light and sound. So when they're out hunting at night, they are able to locate their prey. The islands here are all surrounded by levees. To maintain the integrity of those levees, it's pretty important that you keep rodents from burrowing and digging holes. These owls can eat up to 3,000 rodents in a single breeding season. So they're quite an effective method of rodent control. To our knowledge, we have increased the population quite a bit. This particular box behind me last year housed 7 owlets. They all survived to fledging, which is somewhat rare. A typical brood is more in the neighborhood of 4 or 5, but we have 16 of these boxes at the port, and so you do the math, there's a significant number of owlets being reared. I guess it's like the Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come, because they were here in short order, and this particular box has been in use every year since 2006.
The point of the OwlBox program is to reduce pesticide use, protect our levees, and in the meantime, now we've got a great project we can also share with the public that creates interaction.
The port wants to do everything they can to enhance the environment and support.
I couldn't tell from there.
Okay, thank you. We're back in open session. There's no items to report out of closed session. And with that, we will adjourn and wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year as well. Happy Hanukkah as well.
Yes. Gary, thanks for the wonderful gifts, guys.
Yes.
Oil free.